don't actually think I realised I was taking on too much until it was too late. The working day extended to the working evening, to extended to the working weekend, and like you say, that became the norm. I was literally the hamster in the wheel, running faster and faster just to keep up. Because I was taking on more and more, I was having to work harder and harder. My husband will talk about a 4 o'clock in the morning conversation where I said, I simply can't do it anymore. I'm done.
My panic attacks appeared over a period of months at the end of last year. And they were always the same, a feeling of nausea and then hot flushes. And then it would just start to build in terms of my heart rate, and that would race and race.
My father passed away and my brother passed away in the same week, so there was only 4 days in between them. Finding that I was at work, sitting in a box room after work, nobody to talk to. Didn't realise at the time obviously the effect, but as time went on, just found that I couldn't go out of bed anymore, couldn't engage in a conversation. It was just like I was a totally different person, and I just couldn't seem to shake it off.
I've always had sort of issues with anxiety, but it's always been around busy times in my life. I just thought it was me not handling everyday stresses very well, and if I made a mistake, a tiny little mistake that everyone's like, whatever, get over it, but it would be there in the front of my mind and I couldn't get past it. That feeling like you're constantly in fight or flight mode, constantly aware of everything that's going on, thinking about things, well, if I do this, if I do that. It was just consuming my brain and I couldn't do anything else.
When I was a teenager, I was more aware of probably being more emotional at that time. At different times, there'd be a good week or two where I just feel what I now recognise as being low, or back then I would have just thought of as not being in a particularly good mood, I imagine. It's probably there in the back of your mind that maybe that's something maybe that's something more than that. I think I was very scared of how it would be perceived by other people around me, at work, family, friends, it being perceived as a weakness. And I remember very much actually that going to the doctors, and after that it became something very different. It became very empowering to take control of the narrative. I think the most important thing is that you create a culture where talking about mental health and mental well-being is acceptable, and part of what you do. What we try to do at Santander is, first and foremost, we talk about people having mental well-being, as mental well-being being something that everybody has and manages on a day-to-day basis. It's getting away from this idea that a mental health condition is something that you either have or you don't. It's opening the club up to everybody and saying this is something that we can all talk about and we can all make improvements on.
I blurted it out, as it were, at the time, just blurted out and said, I'm German and I've got depression. I think it was a bit overwhelming at the time, but the support I got straight away from everybody coming and speaking to me about it was fantastic.
By talking about my experience to other people, I can talk about the signs and signals, and so I will speak to them about the signs to look out for, and we do that with each other, so it's not just me telling other people what to look out for. For me, it's reciprocal. Being aware of that creep with the extension of the working day and the weekend, especially as I'm a flexible worker, so I have young children, really is that self-awareness. And in my head I have almost an image of a cliff edge, because I don't want to fall off that cliff edge again. And I challenge myself as to how close am I, and if I am getting close to that, what am I going to do to rein it back in, to do something positive.
It's been an amazing change for me. If you can imagine, you're sitting there reading a book on a Sunday afternoon, and you read and read and read, and then suddenly someone comes in and switches a light on and says, why are you reading in the dark? Well, you haven't noticed that it's got dark because you've been in that situation. And I looked back kind of at the end of my therapy sessions and thought, God, I don't even recognise the person that I was 6 months ago. And not to say that I don't still have anxious times and anxious days. What I've learned is that, I do have anxiety. So I recognise that and I live with that and I manage that through mindfulness and exercise and a different outlook on life.
I am so lucky with the team that I've got at the moment. They've been so supportive.
Listen to an employee as much as you can, check in on them to make sure they're okay. You don't have to check in all the time, and I keep on the case, they do need a bit of space, but just monitor them at a distance. Sometimes you don't need to do anything. It's just having that conversation, just asking whether that employee is okay.
It was just enough to know that actually I'm not on my own and there are people that I can talk to. I've been really lucky, although it's been a really tough time, it's really sort of shown me that actually I've got some really good friends in work. All I can say to Lee is thank you. So we went from being my colleague to my manager, which is not an easy task. He's made it so much easier, and I don't think he realises how much easier he has made it.
She's helped me develop myself as a manager, because she's been so open and honest. It's really empowering to know that I've managed to help Rachel through this and make a difference to her.
We normally do that when we've been on a team night out though,
Yeah.
don't we?